Okay, so hi, hello, welcome back to another episode of Borrasca. So I don't know how well the last part of this series goes, but I did promise my Twitch chat that I will continue to read Borrasca. But those people who wanted me to read it are not here at the moment though, but this will be going up on YouTube. So I decided to do it right now. And also, you're wondering why, as a Twitch chat, this is actually filmed live on Twitch. So this is a one take that I'm doing. So it's gonna, you know, hopefully, hopefully it goes pretty well. But yeah. So before I get into it, as I mentioned, this is a one take. I do not own the story, and this is made by C.K. Walker. I believe C.K. Walker is her title though, but I forgot her name right now. But she is an amazing writer. She worked on Haunted Hill House and all that stuff, so she knows what she's doing. But yeah, so I decided I might as well just finish part one, um, and let's see where it goes from here. So I ended off right when Sam, Kyle, and Kimber were riding their bikes back from the triple tree when they drank that warm beer. So ended off when they're giggling, trying to decide if they were too drunk to bike home. So let's get into it. School started 2 days later, and I completely forgotten about Borrasca. When my dad pulled up to the curb to drop me off that morning, he locked the doors. He locked the doors before I can get out. Not so fast, he laughed. As your father, I get the privilege of giving you a hug and telling you have a good day. I hope you have a good first day of school. But Dad, I gotta go meet Kyle by the flag before the first bell. And you will, but give me a hug first. In a few years, you'll be driving yourself to school, and let me be your dad while I still can. Fine, I said, exasperated. I leaned over to give my dad a quick hug. Thank you. Now go meet your friend. Your mom will be waiting here to pick you up at 3:40. I know, Dad. Why can't I take the bus like Whitney? When you're 12, you can take the bus, he smiled and unlocked the doors. Until then, I get to drop you off in the mornings. If you think it'll make you look cooler, you can ride in the back seat behind the cage. Dad, just don't. I threw open the door of his cruiser before he could say anything more, and ran as he laughed behind me. Kyle was already waiting for me at the flagpole, and he found Kimber too. Dude, you almost missed the bell, he yelled when he saw me. I know, I'm sorry. Whose class are you in? Kimber asked. She was wearing a red sweater and leggings with frogs on them. Her curly orange hair was brushed into ringlets, and her lips were pink and shiny. She never looked prettier, and I was surprised to realize I'd never really seen Kimber as a girl. Ah, Mr. Diamonds. Me too, she said cheerfully. Lucky? Cal scoffed. I'm in Mr. Taverdes. Only two fourth-grade teachers, I get the crappy one. Kimber grimaced. Yeah, my mom had her when she was a kid. What's wrong with her? What did she say? Just that she's strict and gives out homework on the weekends. On the weekends? Fuck! Excuse me, Mr. Landy. I immediately recognized the tall man that had suddenly appeared behind the white-faced Kyle. Sorry, sir. I mean, dang! Kimber giggled. I'm sure you did, he nodded. I'm Sheriff Clary. Even though I only met him a few times, I liked my dad's boss and he liked me. Well, hello, Sammy. Are you excited for your first day? Sheriff Clary crossed his arms in front of him and widened his stance imposingly, but gave me a wide smile. Yes, sir, I said, and added lamely, What are you doing here? I'm giving a presentation to the 5th and 6th grades about safety when walking to and from school. Yeah, he gives it every year, Cal muttered. Cool, I smiled. Sheriff Clary nodded at me and then turned and walked away. I looked around confused. Where's Kimber? She took off. She is annoyingly on time to everything. As if to illustrate his point, the bell rang, and we both ran up the stairs and inside. I walked into the class and saw that Kimber had saved me a spot next to her in the back. Mr. Diamond, a short, round man of 40 or so, nodded at me when I came in. Mr. Walker, I presume? Yeah, that's me, I mumbled as I rushed past him to the desk next to Kimber. Welcome to Drisking Elementary. And for the rest of you, welcome back. Go Grizzlies! The class echoed a reluctant and subdued, Go Grizzlies. Kimber introduced me to other kids in class throughout the morning. Most of them were nice, if sort of underwhelmed by me. They said their hellos and asked where I was from, and the conversation usually ended with unimpressed, okay. A group of girls who sat near the front snuck look at us all morning and snickered. I asked Kimber who they were, and she just shrugged. During our second break, they came up and talked to me. Are you friends with Kimber Destaro? A tall, dark-haired girl asked me. Yeah, I answered. I looked over at Kimber. She was watching me with worried eyes. Are you related to her? No. I didn't think so because you don't have orange hair. I didn't know what to say to that. Also, sorry if you guys can hear my dog in the background. She's pouting right now. You don't have to be friends with her, you know, said the second girl with an oddly round face. I want to be friends with her. A third girl behind the other two snorted. She had pretty auburn hair and a rude, upturned nose. Well, if you don't, you're going to be the ugly kid group, the first girl warned. And once you're in that group, you can't leave it forever. Better than the bitch group, I said. Rude nose and round face gasped, but dark hair smiled. We'll see, she said, and the three returned to the corner of the room. I sat back down next to Kimber, feeling like a badass. It was the first time I ever used a swear word in front of anybody other than Kyle. What did they say to you? Kimber asked, nervously. They said you're too pretty to be near them, and you make them look gross, so we had to stay away from them. Liar, Kimber answered, but I could tell she was smiling. We met Kyle in the cafeteria at lunch, and he had nothing but bad things to say about his morning. Mrs. Taverty was old and mean, and she made everyone come up and say something about themselves. Even though the class only had 14 kids and they all knew each other. When the bell rang for recess, I went to throw my lunch away with Kyle, and I bumped into a kid I hadn't seen before. Hey, are you Sam Walker? The kid asked. Yeah. Oh, your sister is dating my brother. Oh, man, Kyle laughed. Your sister is dating a Whittinger. Shut up, Kyle, the kid grumbled. She's going to be Whitney Whittinger. As funny as it was, I couldn't help but be a little surprised. Not that I've been paying attention, but I only seen Whitney out of her room once over the summer. Where did she meet him? I asked the Whittinger kid. I don't know, probably at his job. His job? Where? He works at Drisking Water. It didn't make any sense to me, but I shrugged it off. I did remember my mom giving Whitney some menial task like getting the car washed and setting up some utilities to get her out of the house. Maybe she met him once and they started dating over text. Teenagers are weird. The rest of the school week followed much like the first. We were well into the first month when I heard someone mention the skinned men again. We were out on the playground, and Kyle and I were trying to start a fire with 2 large wood chips. I just given myself a splinter when a distant sound of metal grinding on metal flooded over the playground, silencing every one of us. Borrasca, I said in awe. Yep, said Phil Saunders. The skinned men killed again. Hey, Kyle said only babies believed in the skinned men. I threw an accusatory look at Kyle. They do. Phil is just stupid. Am not. Ask Danielle. She's seen them. Phil scanned the playground and then yelled at a blonde girl talking to the rude nose. Hey Danielle, come here. The blonde girl rolled her eyes and came skipping over anyway. What do you want? I told you Kayla doesn't like you, Philip. No, tell them about the skin men. Phil gestured to the air around us, which filled with the metallic scraping coming down from the mountain. You tell them. No, you saw them, you tell them. I didn't see them. Paige saw them. Oh, Phil said, and an uncomfortable silence descended. You guys are weird, Danielle said before flipping her hair in our faces and leaving. Who's Paige? I asked when she'd gone. Her sister, Phil said. Paige disappeared when we were like 5, Kyle said. After she saw the skin men, Phil added. The sounds from the mountain abruptly ended, and the subdued atmosphere of the playground disappeared with it. When the bell rang, Kyle lined up in his class line, and since Phil was in my class, I made sure I was behind him. The teachers began to count us off. Hey, what else do you know about Borrasca? I whispered to him. My brother said, that's where people go when they disappear. To Borrasca. What happens to them there? Bad things, he said. And then shushed me when I asked him what that meant. The year dragged on, and it wasn't until Christmas break when I heard the machine at Borrasca again. It was December, and there was a thick blanket of snow on the ground, which only served to amplify the noise from the mountain. I sat in my room listening to it for a few minutes, trying to decide what was happening in that place when bad things happen. I saw my dad's cruiser pull up out the window and went down the stairs to greet him. As I passed my sister's door, I heard her giggling in that annoying teenage girl way, and I cringed. I hoped Kimber never got like that. Dad! I skidded on the landing, just as he opened the door. My dad stomped the snow boots. My dad stomped the snow off his boots and threw open his arms. Sammy, how many years has it been? He joked. It was true. I hadn't seen much of my dad lately since he was working so much, doing what? I didn't know since this was the quietest and lamest town ever. Mom thought the sheriff was grooming Dad for his job since Clary was so old, and Dad never really agreed or disagreed with her. He only been at the department 7 months, after all, and he doubted people in the county would vote for him. Hey, Dad, do you hear that? Like machine-sounding noise? Yep, I hear in town every now and then. Do you know what it is? I asked the sheriff about it, and he told me the noises come from a private property up in the Ozarks. Is the property called Borrasca? I asked quickly. I have no idea. Borrasca? Where'd you hear that? I shrugged. Kids at my school. Well, it's nothing to worry about, Sammy. Probably just some logging equipment. But is the place called Borrasca? Have you ever heard of the name before? No, I have not heard that before. Dad pulled his boots off and shrugged off his coat, looking towards the kitchen. I could tell I was losing him. Have you ever heard of the skinned men? I asked quickly. Skinned men. Good God, Sam. Is your sister telling you these stories? No. But he wasn't listening to me anymore. Whitney! He yelled upstairs. No, Dad, Whitney doesn't even talk to me, I repeated. I heard a door creak open upstairs and Whitney peered over the railing, phone in hand, an annoyed look on her face. Are you trying to scare your brother? Dad demanded. Dad, no, I said again. Whitney shot me a betrayed look. Seriously, like, as if I waste my time. You aren't telling them stories about skinned men? No, Dad. I told you I heard it at school, I said. Whitney gestured to me as if to say, see. Alright, well, you kids need... Alright, well, you kids need to start getting along. You're family for Christ's sake. Whitney rolled her eyes, and when Dad walked into the kitchen, she stuck her tongue out at me. Roll mature, Whitney, I yelled up, but she was already gone. I'll tell Dad about your boyfriend. Christmas came and went with surprising smoothness at our house. Whitney and I got everything we had on our list, which was a first for us. The town may be smaller, but Dad's paychecks were clearly better. I wore my new Rams parka on the first day back to school after Christmas break. Cal fawned over it, and Kimber showed off her blue pearl necklace her mom had gotten her for Christmas. Kyle and I feigned interest, but did it poorly. Kimber knew, but just seemed happy we cared enough to fake it. As we said goodbye to Kyle for the morning, Kimber was suddenly slammed from the side. Kyle caught her before she fell, and I spun around angrily to see the dark-haired girl, whose name I learned was Phoebe Dranger, laughing and walking away from us with round-faced girl. You're bad people who make poor life choices, Kyle yelled at them. When I'm your boss someday, I'll make you clean the bathrooms. Yeah, and if Kyle's your boss, you know you messed up, I added. Kyle and I high-fived and turned to Kimber, but she wasn't sharing in our victory. She was trying to hide the tears on her face. Don't sweat those girls, Kimber. Nobody likes them. People are just nice to them because they're related to the Prescotts. Kyle tried to give her an awkward pat on the back, but Kimber turned away from him and ran in the opposite direction. I hate those girls. I really hate them, I said. I know, they're bitches, Kyle answered, mouthing the last words as he looked over his shoulder for any lurking adults. Well, I better get to class and make sure they don't try and talk to her again. There was an assembly this morning, no class until after lunch. Seriously? That's awesome. Do we have to sit by class? Not usually. We better get there quick so we can get seats in the back, Kyle said, as we started walking. What's the assembly for? I asked. It's either DARE or the History Society presentation. What's DARE? You know, DARE, as in don't you dare do drugs or you're grounded until you're dead? Oh, I hope it's the history thing then. We found Kimber already in the auditorium. She had collected herself and saved us both seats at the back of the room. She waved us over just as a puffy, stern Miss DeVerde walked onto the stage. Hello, fourth graders. This morning we have a special presentation for you from the Historic Preservation Society of Drisking. If you have questions during the course of the lecture, please raise your hand. Like that'll happen, Kyle laughed. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Wyatt Dowding, Miss Catherine Scanlon, and of course, Mr. James Prescott. What? Jimmy Prescott and not his dad? That's so weird, Kimber whispered. Dude, Thomas Prescott has done his presentation every year for like 20 years, Kyle said. It's definitely weird. It's not weird, whispered Mike Sutton from behind us. He leaned forward. Tom Prescott went crazy like a year ago. He didn't do the presentation last year when my sister was here either. I just don't like Jimmy Prescott, Kimber shook her head. He gives me the heebie-jeebies. His dad is so much nicer. He's like a grandpa. The presentation was slow and boring. Mr. Dowding and Miss Scalon talked about the first settlers here, the Cherokee and the Trails of Tear. They talked about Alexander Drisking's discovery of a motherlode of ore in the mountains and settling here with his family to mine and refine iron from. Then James Prescott took the stage from there to tell the story of his family's early journey to the town, and the role in the revitalization of Drisking itself in the late 50s. The last part was the most interesting of all. I found Jimmy Prescott to be infallibly charismatic and entertaining. I was so busy laughing at his jokes and hanging on his every word that by the end of the by I was so busy laughing at his jokes and hanging on to his every word that by the end of his presentation, I realized I actually learned quite a bit. So much so that I was interested enough to ask a question, which Kyle warned was committing social sewer slide. Mr. Prescott scanned the room and answered a few questions before he finally got to me in the back. Yes, you, in the back. Mr. Prescott, why did the mines close? Like, what happened? I asked. Very good question, young man. What did you say your name was? Ah, Sam Walker. I believe I met your father the other day at the sheriff's office. Welcome to Drisking. As for your questions, most of the mines were closed in 1951 after a long period of unprofitability. The mountain had simply ran out of iron ore. The mills and refineries were abandoned, and the town suffered for years. The miners and the families moved away. Stores went out of business, schools closed, and Drisking became a ghost town. That would have been the end of it if it weren't for stubborn families like mine who refused to leave. We refused to give up on the town, and after many, many years of hard work, Drisking became the picturesque little haven in the Ozarks that it is today. I hope that answers your questions. I sat back down. Kyle shook his head at me. Bro. The assembly suffered through another 15 minutes of awkward Q&A until Mrs. DeVerde finally cut us loose. We were released into the cafeteria to wait for the lunch lines to open. Kyle, Kimber, and I sat in our usual corner. That was so boring, Kyle whined. When are they going to figure out that no one cares about Drisking's history? Seriously, I fall asleep like 3 times. Kimber nudged me. Sam seemed to care, she said. I just want to know about the mines. Mines are creepy, that's all. Yeah, but all our mines were blown up. You can't go in them anymore, Kyle said. Blown up? I asked. Kimber nodded. Some kids died after going into the mines, so the city set off some controlled blast to implode the caverns. At least that's what my mom said. They messed up though, and I heard they blew up the water table or poisoned it or something. What? How do you know that? Cal asked. Kimber shrugged. I heard my dad talking about it. Did they use C4 or something? I guess. So, like, we all drink the water, so we all have C4 in our bodies, and we could explode at any minute, Cal said, excited. Do you think that's what happened to all the missing people? I asked him, just sitting there one day, and then, boom. Yeah, dude, Cal grabbed my shoulders, and that's where the skin men come from. I made the international symbol of mind blown, and we laughed hysterically. You guys are dumb. Kimber rolled her eyes, but then she laughed when Kyle fell on the floor, pretending he was exploding. I remember thinking that in that moment, that I was happy here in Drisking, Missouri, with these 2 people. Happier than I've ever been anywhere else. It was the last truly happy moment I ever had. Less than an hour later, Mr. Diamond's phone rang, and he exchanged a few quiet words with the person on the other end, his eyes flicking to and from my desk. It was hard to be surprised then when he hung up and asked me to come to the front. When I got there, he told me my mom was waiting for me When I got there, he told me my mom was waiting for me in the office, and I was going home for the day. I traded a confused and worried look with Kimber, and then packed up my backpack and went to the office. When I got there, my mom was crying. We drove home in a strained silence. I was too afraid to ask what was wrong. My mom parked the car a block from our house, which was blocked by several police cars. When the explanation didn't come, I broke the silence. "Is it Dad?" I asked quietly, holding back tears. "No, honey, Dad is fine," she whispered. "Then what happened?" "Whitney never made it to school this morning." Her voice broke over my sister's name. "Oh, no, Mom, I think she ditched," I said quickly. "I saw her leave this morning, and it was really early, like 6, and she was with her friends, Pete Winicher and that kid Taylor." "We all know that, Sam, but they made it to school and Whitney wasn't with them. They said she wanted to stop by a Circle K near Drisking High, so they left her there, and no one has seen her since." Well, my brain struggled to come up with an explanation. "Maybe she's ditching." "No, honey." My mom put the car back in drive and drove up to our house, parking behind a police cruiser. "The police, as well as your father, think that Whitney is with Jay. But she has a new boyfriend here." We found all her books on the floor of her room this morning, and half her clothes are gone, along with some cash from your dad's. But right now, we think she hitched a ride to St. Louis, and that she's with Jay. The sheriff's office is trying to contact the boy's parents now. Whitney run away? Anyone who knew my sister knew she was prone to dramatic and empty threats. Plus, she was dating Chris Whitaker's older brother, Pete. I was sure of it. We walked up the steps and into a house filled with Stell coffee. We walked up the steps and into a house filled with Stell coffee and quiet murmurs. I tried to remember if Whitney herself had ever actually confirmed she was dating Pete, but I drew a blank. When we walked into the kitchen, I saw my father sitting at the table, staring at phone records, head in hand. He looked up when I came into the room and gave me a weak smile. "Hey, buddy." "Dad, I have to tell you something." I felt a heavy hand on my shoulder, and turned up to look at the solemn Sheriff Clary. "Everything and anything you might know, son, no matter how trivial you think it is." I nodded and sat down at the table with my dad, as my mom handed the big man a cup of coffee. "Here you go, Sheriff," she said weakly. "Please, Mrs. Walker, call me Killian." My mother nodded and retreated back into the darkened corner to talk quietly with Sheriff Clary's wife, Grace. "What do you know, Sam?" my dad asked as he rested his chin on his hands in a mock symbol of prayer, as though I may deliver him from his suffering. "Well, I heard Whitney had a boyfriend, this guy Pete Whitaker, that she's been hanging out with. I saw them and Taylor Dranger leave this morning before me." "What time did they leave?" asked the sheriff. "I don't know, like before 6. He nodded. "That matches the statements of Taylor Dranger and the Whitaker boy." My father's head sunk lower into his hands, and I knew I let him down. But I rushed. "I don't think she went back to St. Louis because she was dating Pete, and I don't think she wanted to be with her boyfriend back home anymore." "I understand that, son, but a teenage girl's mind is a complicated thing." My officers are trying to get a hold of the boyfriend fam. My officers are trying to get a hold of the boyfriend's family back in St. Louis. Clary nodded to my father. Now, why don't you head up to your room and let us work, Samuel? I looked up at him in surprise. What? No, I want to stay down here. I can help. No, son. There's nothing more you can do here. You've been a good brother. Now let us handle this. But I can help! You already have. Dad! I looked over at my dad with begging eyes. Go to your room, Sam, he said quietly after a moment. I balked. Dad! Now! I was so angry. I did the only thing that I could do to make my rage known. I stomped upstairs and slammed the door, and then sat in my bed in disbelief. The tears came then, and I lay there feeling helpless, worthless, and scared for my sister. I thought about all the places Whitney could be. Was she scared? Was she alone? Was she dead? When the sun began to set, I finally got out of bed and went to check my email. I was expecting lots of messages from Kimber and Kyle, but there was only one. Did she go to the treehouse? I sat staring at the computer screen for almost a minute. Kimber's words from last fall echoed in my brain. If you enter the treehouse without the proper ceremony, you'll disappear, and then you'll die. I didn't buy that Whitney had gone to Circle K that morning, and I especially didn't believe that she hitchhiked out of town. Nothing they were saying downstairs made any sense if you knew my sister, but maybe this did. Maybe she and her boyfriend went to the treehouse to make out or something, and maybe he left her there. Maybe she got lost, or maybe the skin men have found her. That was the worst thought of all. I didn't need to sneak out because the police were too busy with my parents to care about me anyways. I snuck out my bike out of my garage and rode 3 miles to the west rim Prescott or Trail. The rest rim Prescott or Trail. When I got there, I saw 2 bikes already locked to the signpost, and my 2 best friends sitting in the snow next to them. I knew you'd come, Kyle said, when I pulled my bike up and Kimber ran up to hug me. I'm so sorry, Sam. There wasn't really nothing for me to say, and they didn't push. Kimber took my arm and we started up the trail. The silence between us was stretched but comfortable. We trudged through the snow, all the while I searched for the telltale footprints of others, but the snow was coming too fast. The hike up the mountain was harder and wetter than we come in the fall, and when Abercott Fort finally came into our view over the ridge, it was a welcome sight. The sun was getting low, and we hadn't brought flashlights. I fell as I ran up to the tree, calling my sister's name to the quiet wild. Kyle was right behind me, and leapt impressively onto the rope ladder, climbing quickly up the planks. I kept calling Whitney's name, waiting for Kyle to yell that he found her, or at least there'd been some sight of her. And then, I heard Kimber quietly say my name from where she stood, at the triple tree. I ran over, and tried to follow her eyes to confirm what I already knew was there. And then, I found it. Freshly carved near the top. Whitney W. My breath froze in my chest, my vision blurred with unwelcome tears. As the sun took its last desperate breath before plunging into the deep of the horizon, a deafening metallic whirl sang out from the wilderness and spilled down the mountainside. Okay, so that was the full, well, not the full, but the rest of part 1. hopefully y'all enjoyed that. Yet again, sorry my voices sound. Oh, sorry if I mispronounce some words. I'm sick still, so like when you try to speak and you're sick, sometimes the words do sound kind of weird. But yeah, hopefully y'all enjoyed the rest of part one. I may do part two depending on how well this one does. I mainly want to read it for my Twitch chat, but you know how Twitch is. It's so finicky on people making it to the stream. And I don't want to force people to come to the stream though, but this was something that I promised the two people that were here that I will do. So, and hopefully you enjoy too, the YouTube viewer. Yet again, sorry for this being one take, but it is what it is. Yet again, this is not my story. This is made by CK Walker. Check her out. I also have a link to Borrasca down below if you want to read it on r/nosleep. And yeah, all links are down below too. I also have my links down below. My Instagram, Twitter, alt Twitter, and my other stuff that I'm on. And yeah, also use code GOONS right down there too. If you want an energy drink that tastes the best and is probably the best quality, check out gamersubs.gg. And you go down below, you can click on the link, it'll take you over there. And please consider using code GOONS at checkout. You get 10% off any purchase of tubs, cups, and all that lovely stuff. So I'm gonna keep you here. I'm gonna keep you guys here just a little bit longer because, this is a one take, so I'll keep you guys here just a tad bit longer. But feel free to click off. But you want to stay, you'll see some pop-ups come up of like recommend videos, and you'll see the little subscribe button. Please consider doing that. But yeah, okay, I'll let you guys go. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye everyone.